story.
The Department of Justice told Fox News they've invited you to the DOJ, and you haven't responded, or are you aware of this invitation to go to the DOJ?
Yeah, so they continued to leak. So we had a productive, what I thought was a productive meeting. And then after that meeting, they've done nothing but leak and leak and leak. Now, we don't know exactly who it is over at the Department of Justice or FBI. I'm not pinning any blame on people, but we're not going to go to another meeting where we don't get documents and then the meeting leaks out. And, you know, they were trying, and this should make people very suspicious. They were trying to get Mr. Gowdy and I to go on Friday to the Department of Justice for supposedly another briefing. We said, look, unless we're going to get documents, we found out Thursday night they were not going to provide documents, so therefore we're not going to go. Now, if you look what happened on Friday night, probably the mother of all leaks of all time to two major newspapers that came out late Friday night.
Yeah, that's
now,
what I want
if had Mr. Gowdy and I went to that meeting, you can bet they would have tried to pin that on us.
That's what I want to ask you about. Stay with us. Devin Nunes, we'll be right back with more on that. Welcome back. We are back with this exclusive interview with House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. And Mr. Chairman, a moment ago, before we went to break, you said it was the mother of all leaks conducted by the Department of Justice. What were you referring to?
Well, there were two mainstream media outlets on Friday night that had lots and lots and lots of details. If any of those details are correct. So remember, we don't have any documents. We can't confirm whether there's an informant or not an informant because we've never been told nor given documents. And in fact, we've never even asked for the name of any informants or any sources whatsoever. So if any of that is true, if they ran a spy ring or an informant ring and they were paying people within the Trump campaign, if any of that is true, that is an absolute red line. There is not an honest person in this country who can believe that taxpayer dollars going to fund this ring and operate like this, like what's said in the New York Times, I think it had quite a bit of detail on it. If any of that is true, this is a red line in this country. You can't do this to political campaigns. But I mean, this was done. I mean, according to them, this was done in the spring. I mean, before the counterintelligence investigation was even open. If that's true, we need to know about it.
So, well, the New York Times reports and the Washington Post that somebody was paid. Somebody was paid, and they were interacting with the Trump campaign. You want to call it spying? Fine. But somebody was paid. Isn't that right? That's what the New York Times says.
If they paid someone, it's an absolute red line, and this is over with. I mean, I don't know how to say this. I mean, there is no possible way that we should be allowing, even if it was legal, we should never allow this in this country. Congress should not allow for anything like this to ever occur again to any political campaign if it in fact happened, which is why I'll say again, all they got to do is provide us the documentation. If they didn't do anything like that, provide us the documents so we can verify it.
Well, when you say this is over, what do you mean this is over? I mean, we have criminal referrals from the Inspector General
what I'm saying is it's over, and when I say it's over, meaning that this whole thing is a scam. I mean, that there's real FISA abuse here. If there is real, I mean, the real FISA abuse, I just can't imagine if what's in these stories is true. How can any American stand for this? And look, we're a separate branch of government. We set up these capabilities. We have a responsibility to oversee these capabilities. And I'll tell you, there is not an honest person in this country that thinks it's okay if sources, informants, whatever you want to call them, go around and start passing out money all over the globe to do what? To secretly put yourself into a presidential campaign. That's not acceptable in this country.
How far up the line does this go? We know that Loretta Lynch and Sally Yates were briefed on the Trump campaign in 2016, in the spring of 2016. We know from Peter Strzok texts that he said, and I quote, President Obama wants to know everything we're doing on this. And we know that Peter Strzok told Lisa Page we need an insurance policy should Donald Trump win the presidency. So who was calling the shots here?
Well, look, there's a lot of abuse here, and so they were briefed in the spring. So we know that the FBI briefed the highest levels of the Obama administration in the spring of 2016. Shortly after that, you have Mr. Steele that gets going. He's being paid by the Clinton campaign secretly. He's also meeting with the FBI. He's digging up what ends up being totally phony dirt, by the way, who he claims got it from Russians. And so I don't know how clearly I can possibly say this. If anybody's looking for collusion, all they have to do between the Russians and a political party, all they have to do is figure out if, in fact, Christopher Steele talked to Russians, because there you have your collusion. They took information from Russians and they used it against the president, President Trump.
And the Democrats
and then they
paid
started,
for it.
and the Democrats paid for it all.
Yeah.
And this is so I don't even know what they're investigating at this point.
So